Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Industry. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We have been concentrating on cannabis and the cannabis industry, but of course there's another industry that's coming up right behind it, and that is the psychedelic movement, if you will, soon to be industry. And Denver actually decriminalized psilocybin last year. And Oakland followed suit with a few other plant-based medicine drugs. And now we have Oregon that has decriminalized all drugs. So it is with great pleasure. We have Damon Michaels on today from Mydecine. And Damon comes from cannabis and now still has his toe in cannabis, but also is moving on to the psychedelic world. Welcome, Damon.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me. It's a true pleasure to be speaking with you today and, talking about the evolvement of where I've come and of course, where it's all heading.
So first, tell us how you got into cannabis.
Sure. That's definitely a fun journey in itself. My background, I grew up in California, Southern California, and in 2008, I moved to Colorado. But before I moved to Colorado, I was really, excited to, figure out where my path in life was going to lead to. I thought it was going to be in the music industry. At the time, some friends of mine started a dispensary in the Valley, San Fernando Valley in California, that I was trying to help them manage as well. So I was, doing a little work there while doing other stuff with, artists and music promotions and management. So that was my first initial legal stint into the cannabis industry. And then after I moved to Colorado, of course, I left that. But as Colorado legislation evolved with cannabis regulation and compliance, it only made more sense for me to kind of dip my toes back into it once that started to occur. And then through the, hoops of the industry, if you will. I mean, once again, I started off, with management and understanding what it took to be a bud tender. I understood, what it took to be an indoor grower, an outdoor grower. I did everything from, all the basic work from trimming to transplanting, or understanding what it took to go through the extractions phase of the learning and education behind, where cannabis goes once it's harvested. And then, of course, got behind that pretty heavily. But honestly, a lot of my knowledge and past experience in cannabis that took place over the course of more than a decade, a lot of it honestly went out the window once I stepped foot into Ebu's lab in Evergreen, Colorado. And once I saw the true science that was being conducted with cannabis and where the future of cannabis was really heading, learning about things around cellular pharmacology, chromatography, clinical pharmacology, genetic, even utilizing the geneticists at Ebu, utilizing tools like CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology. I knew that when I stepped foot into that lab that I wanted to do everything I could to be a part of it. And I couldn't be more grateful enough that John Cooper, the CEO of Ebu, was able to take me under his wing, as a leader, as a friend, and as a mentor to really help me, help evolve Ebu to what it eventually became. I guess what Ebu, truly was, the first company to build out the true science behind cannabis, or the molecules of cannabis, the different cannabinoids and terpenoids and how they interact independently or synergistically to create specific formulations that are designed to promote specific effects or wellness effects, whether it's chill, bliss, focus, or a sleep aid, or, antidepressive product, or, anti-pain product. We were trying to figure out if we just used the natural compounds of cannabis, if we could actually design true drug formulations or medicine formulations as a designer product for that we could either create our own products with or then license them out to other companies. We took that pivot to, from designing and developing and producing our own retail products to then, understanding that we have something incredible here with all the IP that we were filing, over the course of time. Ebu filed over 48 US and international patents.
Wow.
And those patents, they were very, very unique, very novel, very non-obvious, which is what's important, when you're going after a patent, what you can't find in Mother Nature, what's non-obvious, and, what's developed, within, your own environment, if you will. And our environment was, of course, at Ebu, utilizing these different sciences that were married together to ultimately create those formulations. And, of course, pairing that with unique delivery mechanisms. And none of that would have been, developed if it wasn't for the incredible brains or super brains, if you call them, from the scientists at Ebu. I mean, guys like Dr. Brian Reed, Dr. John Martin, Rob Roscoe, Kurt Levy, Dr. Martin Emark and Isidro and even Dr. Andrew Shadane, all these guys came together underneath Ebu's roof and really promoted what ultimately became possible. And so as we started to develop that, once again, we turned it into a licensing model where we wanted to become the Intel Inside, if you will, of the cannabis industry, where we take the IP, the unique formulations that we have, and then license them out to other companies. And we were having big boardroom meeting discussions with big pharma companies, big beverage companies, whether it was, big soda or energy drinks or whatever have you, and so forth. And all these amazing companies, really looked at Ebu as their guiding light to take the initial leap into the cannabis world and start creating their own products. Well, ultimately, those licensing deals turned into much bigger deals where instead of just licensing our IP, why don't we just acquire all of your assets? And that ultimately led to a bidding war, which Canopy Growth ultimately obtained all of Ebu's assets in the company back in November of 2018 for $429 million or $330 million USD. And that was the end of that journey.
Wow, that's incredible. I love hearing good stories like that where somebody didn't lose a company. They actually got paid for a company, which is wonderful. I mean, I remember you guys had, I feel like 25 PhDs at one time, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean, it all stems from the staff. I mean, a good company is only supported by its team. And John did an incredibly good job of putting together the best team possible. And ultimately, we were, true trailblazers, if you will, real pioneers. And the angle that we took, Robert Frost, road less taken in the cannabis industry. And, everybody was going after a dime a dozen approach, opening up a retail facility, an extraction facility, a grow facility. But, the fact that we were able to utilize the true science and develop the pharmacology of essentially road mapping the entourage effect of cannabis to make it particular for, unique medicines or personalized medicine, that allowed us to really, just go after the goal. A lot of people supported us financially, and, the angel investors really helped keep the company alive. There were a lot of times that we didn't know if we were going to make it, and then we kept getting the support that we needed to continue to push forward. And yeah, it was great. But like anything, a lot of people look at the end of the road, the success, but it was really all the hard work, the late nights, the everything that took us to get there, and the belief and the culture and the friendships that we made within the company that kept the bond and the morale very high at all times.
That's interesting because, yeah, everybody was focused on edibles or cultivation or what can I make here. Instead, you guys were truly devoted to the science.
And that's the hope, when the cannabis industry truly becomes a more sophisticated, I guess, or have sophisticated products behind it that really allow for true consistency, true predictability, early onset for the effects. Most products in the cannabis industry, it's really like a wild card. You don't know. Ultimately, the properties of cannabis, the consumption, it creates, a major healing value. But really, when it comes down to the true chemical science of how they interact with different receptors in the mind and body, that's what really matters. And that's what we were, setting the stage for. And I'm glad that other companies are starting to, understand that, look at the major and the minor cannabinoids and how they play, major functions within the overall formulation of one's product, whether that's a drink, a food product, whatever it might be. I mean, at some point I could see cannabinoids being, are being taken from an intravenous level inside of hospitals. At some point, it's going to matter.
Absolutely. Well then, so Ebu gets a nice exit and you don't go to a private island. Or wait a second, you did go to an island, but just not private.
High hopes, right? I mean, I split my time between here, Florida, Colorado, a lot, but it's great. I mean, right now, as I am down here in the Virgin Islands, I kind of call it was just incredibly, impeccable timing with COVID. I did not plan for that, obviously, but now that I'm down here, it's kind of like I'm social distancing from the U.S., which right now, as of today, November 19th, cases are spiking, and
Yep.
Denver's shutting down tomorrow. I mean, full lockdown. So, yeah, so it's scary. They're in level red. I think the next level above that, the final level is purple, where they shut down hospitals. So they're at level red as of tomorrow, and I just pray for the best. All my friends, all my family that are back in the States, there's a lot of hope, but who knows where this is really all going. It's creating a lot of issues, especially mental health issues. And as we talk about what we're discussing today, that's our overall plan is to help on the back end, with people that are trying to cope with any types of mental health disorders that they might be facing, especially now with COVID.
Absolutely, and that leads us right into it. So from cannabis to psychedelics, psilocybin, psilocin. So let's talk about how that transition happened and what is Mydecine.
As I just mentioned, all the incredible things that amounted to at EBU, of course, that really set the stage for us personally as far as, what we could really do next. Of course, we didn't want to go backwards. How do you go backwards from that? How do you go backwards from EBU and the incredible success that we all had with that? So that was a big challenge, like any professional athlete, like once you win a world championship, once you win the Stanley Cup, once you win, the World Surfing League, world title, what do you do after that? And that was a big head scratcher. So right away, I started my own consulting firm for, helping out, not so much the THC side, but more of the hemp side of the cannabis industry, and looking at not only the active compounds, but all the other, value adds that hemp has, whether it's fiber, whether it's food, whether it's building materials. And I really started to dive into that very heavily over the course of a year, because once again, EBU's exit was November 18, and Mydecine didn't officially get started until March of this year, of 2020. Wow. So over that course, I was working with different companies around the globe. I was literally flying around the planet, going to Vancouver, to China, to Japan, to Australia, to Thailand, to Malta, and other parts of Europe, trying to work with different companies on a global level to help them understand, what they can do with the value of hemp. And it's incredibly remarkable, and that's why I still have one leg in that, essentially, because I know that there's a lot of value there. But ultimately, once we started Mydecine, it's really taken over my life. And so I'll explain how I essentially evolved into psychedelics, and I wouldn't say I necessarily jumped or just pivoted into psychedelics, especially not for a trend purpose. As you're seeing right away, just because it's evolving, especially with Oregon and everything, you're seeing a lot of right away, as we've always seen, the THC side in the industry, the CBD side, the hemp side, that there's a lot of fly-by-night or flash-in-the-pan companies. We call them PowerPoint companies, where that's all they have is a PowerPoint without any real substance. And so, I really think that if you're going to jump into this, do it headstrong. Give it all you got. If this is something that you want to make a career out of, then do it. Don't just, take something and make it a pump and dump situation, because what good comes out of that? Nothing. It just hurts the industry as a whole, and it burns, names and reputations. And that's not, why we're in this. This is obviously a major passion project that's evolving into something great. And I'll talk about it a little bit, in depth as far as what Mydecine is. So once again, our passion really lies with the exponential values of the unique values that fungi provides, as nature source medicine, or just as nature source medicine as a whole. Fungi is super vast. Obviously, cannabis or cannabinoids have incredible capabilities there. We know that there's a lot of other nature source medicines or components out there that we have yet to even be discovered. But now that we've pivoted, into the fungi space, it's opened up a whole new world where psychedelics is just one aspect of it. We're looking at mushrooms, all their functional capabilities. There's a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of gourmet mushrooms or edible mushrooms you could eat that have no psychedelic or psychotropic experiences at all. It's simply just overall medicinal or healing. It could help with everything from regulating blood sugar to cholesterol to overall energy to focus. It's incredible. So similar to how THC is a psychoactive or psychotropic compound found in cannabis, it has all these other minor cannabinoids that have no psychoactive effect or intoxicating effect, if you will, where it inebriates you. I wouldn't say intoxicating, sorry, inebriating effect, but still it's the same thing with mushrooms. Mushrooms have that one component or, multiple types of tryptamines, which could create, a psychedelic or psychotropic experience, such as psilocybin or psilocin. And there's others yet to be discovered that we're on the pathway to doing now. But like cannabis, there's a lot of other compounds that aren't, that still add a lot of great value adds, that are these incredible active compounds, that we're starting to dive into too, and then understand those formulations. So taking a similar approach to what we did at EBU, and now kind of utilizing that same approach in the world of science and the technology that we have today in 2020 and soon to be 21, and pairing that technology with ancient cultured medicine that's been around, through East Asian cultures forever now. And now we're able to pair those two universes together and really create something profound that we're very excited about.
That's incredible. So what I'm hearing from you is now you're going to, start looking at psychedelics to create products, if you will. And of course, this is medical, right? I don't even know if recreational will, I mean, there's no recreational except for Jamaica, right?
Correct. Well, I wouldn't even call it recreational. It's just there's no laws around it or against it. Mushroom, psychedelic or psilocybin mushrooms, fungi in Jamaica are looked at just the same as like a white button mushroom that you would, eat on a pizza or put in a salad. So it's cool because, you go down there and there's a lot of places that are starting to open up clinics or retreats in those environments, especially in Jamaica with that environment. The BVI, the British Virgin Islands, you're not allowed to produce them or sell them, but you're allowed to have possession and even consume them. They have these, big full moon parties. So those are just two places in the world that really have the legal acceptance for psychedelic fungi. Everywhere else, it's completely outlawed as a Schedule I narcotic substance. Where it becomes really interesting though, because once again, Mydecine has no interest, like, as my background, did with cannabis. Of course, there's a huge recreational aspect to it, but also a huge medicinal aspect, not just medicinal cannabis, but actual true medicinal values in cannabis that we were trying to uncover. Where with psilocybin, or just these psychedelics that come from mushrooms, or the psychedelic tryptamines, they're a lot more radical than the compounds from cannabis. And so for us, we have no interest in going into the adult use or the recreational market with these at all. Our focus really is in the therapeutic pharmaceutical area. We're not trying to turn this into a big pharma, scary company, that people might think that we're going to head into. No, our job is to take, once again, something that's nature sourced and start to evolve what we call, Western society medicine, and allow products like psilocybin to be involved with that to really help with the true healing process that it has the capabilities for.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to say that. Whereas, cannabis became medical and quickly came recreational. I don't see that happening, especially in the United States. I mean, like you said, it's more intricate, detailed, and, frankly, just a completely different experience than marijuana. So
truly,
you're creating medicinal products. How are you doing this? What does the logistics look like?
Sure. So I'll back up just a little bit and explain kind of why Mydecine, was formed and where it came from. So, just the name Mydecine, it stems from mycology medicine. Mycology is a study of mushrooms or fungi. So mycology medicine, or even my medicine, as we ultimately develop personalized nature source medicine for all. It all started with the concept when Rob Roscoe was the head of genetics at EBU. After Canopy acquired EBU, he went on to be the head of genetics at Canopy Growth. Well, February of this year, he left Canopy. So him and I got together again, which was great, a comeback story, if you will. And we were able to start to, evolve. Once again, where do we go from with where do we go, now that we've accomplished what we did with EBU? Where do we go from with, there? And that's where we started to evolve. Why don't we, dive into the world of mushrooms or of fungi? There's a vastness there, and we could really, go after it. And Rob, right away had a lot of background knowledge as far as how to approach it. So we decided to, and we started taking those steps. And then as we started to develop that concept, conversations started to take place with our other partner and co-founder, Josh Barch. He had an incredible pubco named New Leaf Brands, where we did an integration with them, and we did an acquisition right away for Mydecine was just an idea, and we started a business, and now it's, it was acquired into a pubco. And from there, we started to evolve Mydecine, even farther. We did our initial raise. We were able to, get the money we needed to go after the initial things and partners that we needed to build a foundation of the company. And then some of those things were right away acquiring companies such as Neuropharm and MindLeap, which I'll touch on more in a moment. And then, setting up the partnership with API, Applied Pharmaceutical Innovations in Canada, which is hosted at the faculty or hosted up in University of Alberta, where they're a true pharmacology research center for pharmaceutical drugs and medicine. So it gives us carte blanche access in a CGMP facility, worth over $250 million worth of equipment, let alone all the world-class researchers that are in that environment, where we now have access to focus legally on substances like psilocybin and psilocin for our own research and IP development as we move this forward. And so, going from that to also having a mycology center that we just developed in Denver called Mycom. We just built that out. So it's the first standalone mycology center not attached to a huge university or wherever else it might be in Denver. And we're going to be focusing on the functional aspects. So once again, a two-prong approach here. We're looking at the psychedelic side and we're looking at the functional side of mushrooms and ways that it could play into both, mainstream consumer goods and also therapeutic controlled environments in a pharmaceutical setting.
So you just said you set up a facility here. Clearly, it has to be other mushrooms then. I mean.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, those other mushrooms, psilocybe mushrooms are obviously most of the ones that contain psilocybin or psychedelic compounds. The other mushrooms, like I was mentioning earlier, that have these functional capabilities are mushrooms such as reishi, cordyceps, chaga, turkey tail, just to name some. That lion's mane is a huge one, yeah. And we're looking at all the different active compounds, once again, that they provide, and once again, how to create specific formulations for consistent and predictable use.
Yeah, I take cordyceps and lion's mane. I do, yeah, in my protein shakes. But I mean, it's really shining a light on mushrooms. We think of, yeah, I like mushrooms on my pizza or my salad, but, we really haven't thought too much about it. Just demonizing the psychedelic mushroom, if you will. But how many species did you say, or you haven't said, how many species of mushrooms are
there? There's no true number. There's thousands to millions of different types of species of mushrooms. I mean, the interesting thing is that a lot of people don't realize, that I didn't really realize till recently, over the past few years, is that this was a mushroom planet. 650 million years ago, that's all that it really existed as an organism on planet Earth was mushrooms. 9, 10 foot tall mushrooms that were everywhere. And that's evolved, and now, of course, they're small, but they help communicate, all the different nutrients and signals and energy between plants. Mushrooms are their own kingdom, the fungi kingdom. They're not a plant, they're not a part of the flora kingdom. So it's pretty amazing how it creates a symbiotic approach toward life in general. Mushrooms are, there's so many values and positive benefits that they provide. And we're just starting to tap into what those capabilities even are with the initial research that we've taken at Mydecine. So it's pretty profound what we're going to be able to uncover. We're really excited about it. In a lot of ways, there's better capabilities that it has than cannabis, and in a lot of other ways, there's ways where it hybrids with cannabis or cannabinoids to even create super products that we'll eventually dive into down the road as well.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. And there's a show called Fantastic Fungi, and I remember they were talking about a woman who had, I think, stage 4 breast cancer, and there was a specific mushroom that she started taking, which, from my understanding, actually helped medicine that she was taking.
I mean, if you're speaking of Paul Stamets' mother, who had breast cancer, it's pretty remarkable what he was able to accomplish with, the mycelium of lion's mane, attached to niacin and kind of basically his own concoction, if you will, that really helped his mother overcome and go into remission with the cancer that she was dealing with. I mean, that's just one of the aspects of what fungi can do to help promote. That's still anecdotal overall from a scientific standpoint or point of view. But we're uncovering all the vastness of what they can do. I mean, as you saw in Canada, they're allowing terminally ill patients to consume psilocybe mushrooms to help with end-of-life treatment, where it basically allows you to accept, your fate, you're at the end of your life. And a lot of people look at the end of life like it's this dark, gloomy thing. But if you really look at it, especially when you consume mushrooms, it opens up your mind that there's so much more. The world's so much bigger than all of us, but we're all connected in so many ways. And it allows you to accept that the end is only the beginning to what's to come. And, your energy, your spirit's infinite, whatever that means to anyone as an individual, where psychedelics, especially from fungi, from psilocybin and psilocin, really allows you to tap into that, which, we're essentially blind to until we're able to try that experience and open up our own eyes to what's potential.
Yeah, I mean, that movie is absolutely amazing. And yeah, there is I think they had two patients that were, dying, and it was incredible. I mean, setting, they guide you, and after they just had incredible stories about how they're not fearful anymore and how much it helped them out. So, that's a big thing. Normally now in hospice, we're giving a lot of drugs. People aren't conscious. I believe this and other natural medicines can really help in this area, because all of us, death is feared. It is feared, and it really shouldn't. We should be embracing that. That's another show.
There's a lot of civilizations throughout society, throughout the course of time, where death wasn't a time to mourn; it was a time to celebrate. As to what that means. So, not to really dive into that too heavily, but I think that if psilocybin is a way for people to expand their mind, to allow them to accept death and to be excited about it and be happy about it, which is, I know, weird to think about, but why not flip that switch and look at it in that different light? Apparently, from just what we've seen already, it's definitely an incredible means, if you will, to allow that acceptance to happen, is by that consumption of psilocybin. Once again, that's being done in Canada in a therapeutic setting.
Yeah, and they talk about dose and stuff like that. But here's a near and dear to my heart, right? So back in the day, so how much marijuana do you put in a pot brownie? Oh, an ounce. Oh, okay, great. An ounce of what, right? Is it an ounce of
Right.
10% THC? Is it, did you put hash in there? So we have the same problem then with mushrooms, right? Let's say a big dose is an eighth, 3.5 grams, or just getting started is a gram, but you don't know about that. You have no idea how much psilocin is in there. So, that is a big thing. So when they do this therapy, they use the synthetic form, don't they?
The terminal end of life care, they're actually consuming raw mushrooms, from my understanding.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, they've done numerous studies out of Johns Hopkins, Imperial College of London, through NYU, and so forth, where they have been using synthetic single molecule psilocybin. But once again, there's pros and cons to that, as we're trying to weigh them at Mydecine to see if naturally derived psilocybin versus single molecule synthetic is better or not, or if it's a neutral value. So we're trying to uncover that, because we do believe, just like cannabis, that there's a true entourage effect found within psychedelic mushrooms, that when paired, with psilocybin or psilocin or these other tryptamines, even ones like I mentioned that are yet to be discovered, that we're trying to define and catalog and classify as we speak, they all work together in certain ways. But like cannabis and like fungi, the term that we like to use back at EBU was chemical chaos found in Mother Nature. The thing with Mother Nature is that it produces different varying amounts of chemicals. And like a soundboard, you make one little tweak or one little adjustment, it changes the entire outcome. So if you're able to define that in the lab and take those chemicals that are naturally, or active compounds that are naturally produced, through fungi, and then make sure that they are consistent in the consumption and dosage of that, of that product, whatever it is that's consumed through whatever delivery mechanism, that it's consumed through, then that's where you really start to understand, what turns it off, what turns it on, what's the half-life, what's the experience going to be like, how do you make that truly a therapeutic experience versus someone taking, something one day, having an amazing experience, and then trying it another day and having a terrible experience where they're throwing up, they have a bad trip, etc. So we're trying to figure out ways to alter that to make it easier for the general public, through therapeutic settings. Once again, if they so choose to utilize this as their own form of medicine, at least we give them the option to make it an easier choice, and to not make it such a bad experience if that happens.
Well, obviously, I think that whole plant medicine, whole plant fungi is going to be much better than your synthetic form. But how are you testing mushrooms? Are you extracting out the psilocin and testing that? And what kind of instruments do you use?
Yeah, so once again, our partnership with API, is incredible. They have access to a Schedule I Health Canada dealer's license that took them 11 years to obtain, and that license is now shared through our partnership. So once again, we're able to legally go after the cultivation, the processing, extraction, isolation, and formulations, and even import export of anything that we produce through that license, which is great. So yes, part of that process that we're legally able to do, as mentioned, is the extraction and processing and R&D of these unique compounds, understanding which species are producing which amounts of what active compounds, and then finding ways to ultimately tailor those, or custom tailor those, and then lock those formulations in to make them completely consistent across the board.
Yeah, which includes testing, right?
Which includes testing, yes. We have all the analytical equipment in-house. At some point, third-party testing will be good to have as a backup to confirm the results, but we have all equipment needed to perform these tests. So again, being in a CGMP environment, it's very necessary to have those instruments in-house.
Now, are there a lot of labs testing this?
Not necessarily right now, because you have to have Schedule I license, at least a partial license, or an addendum to your license, if you have a DEA license in the US or whatnot, to actually focus and study these compounds, where we have, full access to everything. So it doesn't allow for someone to just open up shop and then start to research this. Similar to how we had it at Ebu, where we had legal ability before the big pharmaceutical companies were able to jump in. It's a similar ability to what we have now. We have full legal ability to do the, tangible R&D on these types of psychedelic mushroom species, and then from there to, ultimately decide and develop the IP and formulations around them, so that when the industry opens up and compliance and regulations open up to these, such as Oregon now allowing psilocybin clinical treatments, where they're going to be opening different clinics. They're going to need access to, specific formulations versus just consuming the raw mushroom, because the vegetative matter or biomass matter, when it's consumed, that's what causes a lot of the nausea or headaches or whatever, physical effect might happen. That's a negative side effect. Where once that's removed and we have a formulation designed for, going after specifically, whether it's depression or anxiety or it's cluster headaches, or one of the big focuses we have here at Mydecine is going after PTSD. Those are all things that we're trying to help create specific formulations for, nature source designer medicine for those specific indications.
Okay, but let's talk about, you have a DEA license. That doesn't mean that you can grow mushrooms and bring them into the lab, right? You have to, from what I understand, you have to pay like $3,000 for a small amount of synthetic psilocin.
So right now, companies like Compass Pathways and USONA, which is a nonprofit, Compass is a for-profit, but USONA is a nonprofit, where they've developed synthetic psilocybin. And the psilocybin that's been sold to research organizations like Johns Hopkins University and so forth, I mean, they've been charged anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 per gram for their research. That's just because, it's hard to get, and there's only, a few people really producing that, or companies producing that right now. We know for a fact that producing synthetic psilocybin, it is expensive, don't get me wrong. The equipment that it takes, the personnel that it needs, all the things that it needs to produce those grams, it's challenging. It's not as easy as one might expect. But with that being said, with us being able to utilize naturally derived psilocybin and simply do an extract, it's going to be able to reduce the cost significantly for allowing further access for whatever patient portal it's being designed for.
Right. So Mydecine exports the actual mushrooms from Jamaica, transports it to your CGMP lab. They extract it. They're doing studies and they're creating medicine. So your studies are with the actual mushroom. It is not with the synthetic, or are you doing both?
We have the ability to do both. Our main focus is naturally derived extract from fruited body mushroom.
So what's some of your next steps? Can you talk about them? Can you talk about maybe what you're looking at the future? How long do you estimate this to get to other states. I know that cannabis has facilitated a lot of this, so I believe it'll go much faster. What do you think that landscape looks like?
Next steps is always exciting. That's it wakes us up every day very early and allows us to stay awake very late at night, working on this because we know it's going to turn into something great. I kind of look at it where we're going through the jungles of Ecuador with like a couple machetes trying to find the lost city of gold, right? So this is a brand new industry and we're a brand new company, and no one really knows the perfect way to make this successful. But we've learned from past experiences through dynamic, endeavors that we've all been a part of, as a team that we have here at Mydecine, to be able to, do the best that we can with the tools that we have to find that success point a lot faster than if we just started from scratch. Once again, Mydecine is, we are, dedicated as a company, as we grow. People need to really understand that we're an emerging biopharma and life sciences company, really committed to the research, development, and acceptance of alternative nature source medicine, for mainstream use. Reinforcing Mydecine's commitment to mental health solutions is really underpinned by our three main focuses, which is our clinical trials focusing on veterans, EMS, and first responders with PTSD as an indication. The R&D of building a robust portfolio of intellectual property around drug discovery and unique delivery mechanisms for relevant use and patents for future patent applications. And even, accessing modern technology by utilizing our own digital health telehealth platform for better clinical trial management, so and overall health well-being. So it's pretty exciting what we've evolved so far. So by utilizing that ecosystem that we've built, the foundation of Mydecine, our goal is to, of course, expand on the clinical trial sites that we've expanded to already for psilocybin against PTSD. So far, we have those sites, on multiple points around the world, but we're going to be expanding those even farther with universities and other constituents that have a good stronghold on those things, and then utilizing the MindLeap app to help with, as a unique niche. MindLeap allows patients and clinicians to connect virtually, where it allows patients, especially with COVID, it's just incredible timing how it all worked out. But now that everyone's, at home and on lockdown, but you need to seek, help for mental health care in general for your well-being, because a lot of people just focus on their physical health care. You want to go to the gym, you want to look good, you want to look sexy when you go out to the clubs or whatnot, but no one really takes the time to really focus on the fact that we need to care about our mental health care as well, which is even more important in a lot of ways. And so, by utilizing an app like MindLeap, it allows, people to be in the comfort of their living room, connect with a therapist that could be around the world, but could be specifically what their needs are based off their filter. And once they find that person, they're able to go through and utilize technology that comes from your phone to, allow the therapist to see if you're staying up late at night, you're doing this, doing the other, and collect better data than if you're just sitting in a room with them, sitting on a couch and going through this, which ultimately allows the therapist and the patient to receive a better outcome. And MindLeap, built on, an added value, which is the niche of psychedelic aftercare, because the physical, something to really understand is the physical properties that happen, during the consumption or experience of consuming psychedelics, happens right away. But it's really weeks to months after that the true therapeutic values come into play. And that's where MindLeap really helps with that, where somebody can connect with a specialist to help, with what they're going through, whether it's depression, whether it's, dealing with anxiety, whether it's dealing with PTSD or whatever else it might be. They now have a virtual app to go and log into to help them overcome those issues that they might be facing.
Yeah, so it looks like, and I encourage people to go to your website, and there's basically three parts to your portfolio, and that is the natural health products, like you said, with and without psychedelics or psilocybin. Then you're also doing a lot of research and development, obviously, to support those products and create new products. And then your digital health solutions, which is what you were talking about, which is amazing. I don't even think there is one. And that's called MindLeap, correct? MindLeap.
Yep. MindLeap Health. MindLeap is one word. MindLeap Health is the company, and the app is available today. We launched it back on September 30th, and it's available for both Android and iOS or Apple.
Wow. Okay. Very good. So, well, That I have learned a ton, and I am just, putting my toe in the water too. I've been fascinated by psychedelics, of course, for a long time, and then started to see that cannabis is really opening up people's minds to understand that the government has lied to us, and they have taken away some absolutely amazing medicine that has been around for centuries, and we hope to get it, mainstream wellness. That if you so choose, this type of medicine, that you're able to get it, and that's where I stood for cannabis. We need to end prohibition so patients have easy access. Is there anything else that I missed that you may want to talk about?
I think we covered a lot of really great bases here today. I hope, the core hope of what we've discussed, I really hope it allows people to open up their eyes to realize that psychedelics are not bad. We have been subjected to corporate suppression, if you will, because of all the vastness things that these natural therapeutic compounds can really do and achieve if they're done in the right setting. And so we're just helping bring, shed light on that and bring it to life with our capabilities now with Mydecine, as we once done before with cannabis. And I'm excited to see where this goes, Genifer. I'd love to pick up the discussion as we evolve further and dive into further questions and a deeper dive for what we're, going to be accomplishing here over the next few years.
100%. I did come up with one more question. How's the stigma?
Sure. That's a great question. So the stigma behind cannabis, let alone psychedelics, has always been, trumped by lore and just falsified information that it's bad. Cannabis is reefer madness. With psychedelics, you're going to have a freak out moment and you're going to, do something terrible, jump off a building or whatnot, where a lot of that's pretty false. Even if you look into and you go on Google and you research, people that have even had bad experiences with psychedelics, after the overall experience was over, the bad trip was over, that it still helped them heal. Ultimately, it still was a good thing. It was a positive thing that was allowed them to overcome whatever they were dealing with. And so it's quite fascinating, in just the studies that have been performed, over an 87% success rate. Proves in these clinical settings that this is, a valid, safe, and effective medicine for all to use. There's nothing really that's negative. You can't overdose with THC and die from that. We're finding with psilocybin and psilocin the same thing. Although if you do overconsume, you could go into a temporary permanent psychosis, which we're going to help prevent. But still, it's something that's radical that we're here to make sure that it's done properly, and we're once again paving the pathway so that that we help remove that stigma and lore and make this a mainstream accepted use of the new age and revolution of medicine that's yet to come.
Yeah, I'm hoping as these future generations, Gen Z, come along, that, these medicines will be normal. They will understand them. I do know, or I had heard that the younger generations aren't drinking as much alcohol. They're really watching, what is bad for the body, what is good, and those kind of things. So, yeah, cannabis stigma is still alive, and I can't even imagine about mushrooms, but I've posted a couple of times on LinkedIn, and there seems to be a lot of people on LinkedIn that are interested and understanding, that probably wouldn't have without all of this stuff that has happened with cannabis. So, yeah.
It helps heal, with cannabis, I look at it where cannabis helps with overall homeostasis, just keeps the body maintained, where, and that's a potential regular thing for a lot of people, where, psychedelics are, consuming magic mushrooms, for instance, or psilocybin and psilocin. I think it helps with overall rejuvenation of your body and mind, specifically your mind, where it helps reset a lot of the negative things that are suppressing, whatever you're dealing with. And it just allows you to reset and, just be super excited and happy once again, and remember, what that life is worth living.
Now, how can somebody get a hold of you besides the website?
Sure. The website's great, or just emailing, sending an email to us at contact@mydecineinc.com is the best email address for general inquiries.
Okay, great. Oh, well, this has been such a pleasure, and you bet I will have you back, to see how you guys are doing and what cool things you're doing. And I really appreciate you coming on today, and good luck.
can't thank you enough either, Genifer, and everyone for your support. And yeah, we'll talk soon. I'm looking forward to it.
Stay safe, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
This was great, Genifer. Yeah, we'll talk soon.